Mr. Zulkarnain Abdul Rahim.
Mr. Speaker, sir, may I have your permission to answer parliamentary questions 13, 14 and 15 in today's order paper?
Yes, please.
Mr. Speaker, my response will cover the matters raised in the questions by Mr. Zulkarnain Abdul Rahim, Dr. Shahira Abdullah, and Mr. Melvin Yong, who had asked a similar question yesterday, which we have given a written answer to. Between January 2018 and September 2022, 74 uniformed officers in the Home Team passed away while in service. The majority of these deaths were due to illnesses or natural causes. 8 deaths were ruled as suicide. The cause of death for 3 others, which had elements to suggest possible suicide, are pending coronial investigations. With regards to mental health, Home Team officers are provided with avenues of support from the time they join the Home Team. Resilience and stress management training are provided to all new officers. We provide training on detection of personal distress, and this includes suicide prevention. Staff feedback is collected through regular staff engagement and pulse surveys, and the concerns raised include issues which officers may face in the workplace. Home Team supervisors are trained with the skills to identify and support officers who need help. This approach and culture have been built over many years. Across the Home Team departments, in-house psychological services are made available to officers, including first responders. Psychologists in the Home Team departments attend to the mental health needs of the officers. Peer support programs, such as para-counselors, have also been implemented in Home Team departments to provide care and support. For the Singapore Police Force, there is also a 24/7 helpline managed in-house by our psychologists and SPF senior para-counselors. We have another external, agency-administered 24/7 helpline which is available to all Home Team officers. The Home Team makes external counselling services available to all our officers, including frontline officers. The aim is to make it easier for them to access external help. This is confidential and anonymous, and we do not track who attends these services. The external counsellors will activate emergency services if they assess that there could be a threat of harm by the officers to themselves or to others. The police do not track the number of officers who have sought counselling or para-counselling assistance. Officers are not required to report their engagement of such assistance, as the confidentiality of help seeking is important to encourage officers with problems to come forward. Officers who seek help are not specifically disadvantaged in their career because they had sought help. They are assessed on their on-the-job performance, and their promotion is based on merit and their potential to assume higher appointments. SPF psychologists try and demystify the myths and stigma of help seekers during their regular mental health outreach to all police officers. There is increased outreach every October in line with World Mental Health Day to build awareness of the importance of mental health and to encourage help seeking. Where the bearing of firearms is concerned, all police officers and auxiliary police officers undergo security vetting before employment. Medical and psychological assessments are conducted as part of the recruitment exercise for the SPF and for most of the auxiliary police officers, and for most of the auxiliary police forces. Supervisors engage officers to check on their well-being. Officers are also encouraged to alert their supervisors if they think their peers may need help. If officers are assessed at any point to be unsuitable to carry firearms, they will not be issued with firearms and will be redeployed to other duties to allow them to settle down and recover from whatever strains they may be facing. We will continue to strengthen the support for the mental health and well-being of officers in the Home Team and the auxiliary police forces. But we will also require the help of family and friends of officers in the Home Team and the auxiliary police forces, as these family and friends may be in most frequent contact with the officers and are best able to detect changes in moods, in dispositions, and be most sensitive to events, to live events happening to these officers. Thank you.
Mr. Zulkarnain Abdurrahim.
Thank you, sir. I thank the MOS for the answer. It's an important issue given the recent tragic case. In a Washington Post article last year, in the US, law enforcement officers are 54% more likely to die by suicide than the average American, and they are likely to die by suicide than in the line of duty. We don't want to be faced with a similar situation here in Singapore. Can the ministry look into undertaking research and maybe coming up with a toolkit together with other partners or agencies to address this mental health issue among frontline first responders? It can cover various topics and the culture that MOS mentioned as well. And it will also be useful for auxiliary police officers or other frontline or first responders who may not be familiar with current available help right now.
I thank the member for his question and also his concern for home team officers as well as auxiliary police forces. The situation in Singapore is different from what the member has cited regarding the suicide rate of US law enforcement officers. Every suicide is one too many, and I do not wish to trivialize the situation. But our statistics show that the suicide rate among MHA staff is about half that of the Singapore national average. I thank the member for his suggestion on having toolkits and building the right culture to seek help and ensuring access to help channels for our officers. In my earlier reply, I had talked about the resilience training which is conducted for ground officers across the home team departments, and there are also simplified and easy to use toolkits which will help supervisors identify officers who are in distress. In addition, resources on support are shared regularly with officers through various channels. Regardless, this is ongoing work, ongoing very important work to ensure that the mental health of our officers are well taken care of, and we'll continuously look at various means to encourage destigmatization of mental health and to provide help channels which are useful to our officers should they require such support. Thank you.
Mr. Murali Pillai.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I have two supplementary questions for the Honourable Minister of State. First, I join the Honourable Member, Mr. Zulkarnain, in asking whether there's been any study to correlate the suicide cases with any stressors, for example, because of exposure to traumatic incidents, whether the reaction is arises from post-traumatic kind of stresses. The other, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Really, at the end of the day, if we were to identify the psychosocial factors that contribute to such suicides, I think we'll be in a better position to prevent suicides in the first place. So that's the thrust of my question. The second question is in relation to harnessing geo-positioning or geo-fencing technology with respect to auxiliary police officers. I understand that they are being recruited from a wider background, and many of them have static duties. So I wonder whether technology can be harnessed such that if they leave their post and they are bearing arms, there could be some proactivity in managing such situations and hopefully prevent any untoward incident as well. Thank you.
I thank the member for the 2 points that he has raised. On the first point, I had mentioned in my earlier reply that we do conduct surveys to collect staff feedback at regular junctures. We also have regular engagement exercise with our staff officers at various levels, sometimes at very large platforms and sometimes in much smaller platforms. For instance, for myself, I engage officers over breakfast, sometimes 10 people to 20 people, to hear, the perhaps the tensions they may be facing, the stresses they may be facing, to really get ground-up feedback, to get a sense of what they're facing, whether or not it is in their personal lives or whether or not it is what they are facing in terms of their everyday work environment. So it is through these engagements that we get a sense of what are some of the stressors that they may be facing. As I mentioned in my earlier reply, this is continuous, ongoing work, and we will need the help of family and friends, because family and friends are often the most connected to these officers, and they would know if there are any life-changing events that would throw them off course and lead them to choose a very unfortunate way out. So this is continuous work in progress. On the second point you mentioned about geofencing, we can have a think about it, but I think we do have to balance the need for privacy as well as the needs of the job. But thank you very much for that suggestion. Thank you.